Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Productions channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another Album of the Week video. This is episode number 215. Today, Kill 'Em All. It's the debut album from Metallica, released back on July 25th, 1983 via the legendary Megaforce Records label. This is the album that is heralded as the birth of thrash metal, and so tomorrow will be marked as the 40th anniversary. So with all that said, let's begin. What can I say that has been said already? I don't need to go into great depths into the history of Metallica. I'll just be regurgitating the same tired shit that has already been covered in so many documentaries and books that has either covered Metallica or the beginnings of thrash metal in general. But I can at least provide a rundown, or at least a brief rundown, of the history. So, Lars Ulrich, born in Denmark, started out trying to be a tennis player, but once he discovered Diamond Head and became a roadie for him, he then had the bright idea of wanting to start up a band, so he moved all the way out to Los Angeles, where he ended up befriending a relatively local individual named Brian Slagel at a Y&T show. They got together, and Brian was in the midst of starting up his own label named Metal Blade Records. Brian Slagel had this idea to release a compilation record that would feature the best of the top unsigned and unknown bands of the United States in hopes of gaining them exposure. This compilation record would be named Metal Massacre. It would end up being the first record to be released on Brian Slagel's new Metal Blade Records. Lars wanted in on this, but since he needed to start up a band and was looking to doing so, he put his name out there in the local newspaper and thus led to the creation of Metallica, Lars' first and only band, in October of 1981. James Hetfield, who was in a band before, Leather Charm, alongside Ron McGovney, had a song titled Hit the Lights. Lars liked this song so much where this would end up being the first Metallica song. The original lineup was supposed to be John Bush on vocals, James Hetfield, Ron McGovney, and Lars Ulrich, but John Bush had Armored Saint and didn't want to leave them. Apparently Sammy D. John of Ruthless had done some rehearsals with Metallica. So, James decided he would sing. With this, led to their contribution to the very first Metal Massacre. While never recognized as an official member, Lloyd Grant performed the solos on the original Hit the Lights track on the first pressings of Metal Massacre, Volume 1. After that, a young Dave Mustaine, fresh off his stint with Panic, joined as their first permanent fourth member. Out of this lineup spawned the world's most renowned demo tape amongst tape traders, the iconic No Life Till Leather demo. Also during this period, Brian Slagel decided to again put out second pressings of the very first Metal Massacre, and with doing so, he was going to at least replace a couple of bands on that one. And Metallica, since they had already just got Dave Mustaine, thought it would be a better idea to also replace that version of Hit the Lights with, of course, the second version that we now know of, with Dave Mustaine finally on guitar, of course, now being featured on a Metal Massacre comp. Dave Mustaine's only contribution to a Metal Massacre compilation. Sometime after that, Ron would leave and soon be replaced by the late Cliff Burton, and by early 1983, Metallica had moved out of Los Angeles and all the way out to the city of San Francisco, putting them in the middle, soon ahead of, the scene with Exodus, Possessed, and Law's Rocket, playing plenty of shows at the famous Ruthie Zen. From the demo tapes to the live shows, especially up in the northeastern areas, they caught the attention of the Zazulas. The Lates, John and Marcia, offered Metallica their first ever 2-album record deal, to which Metallica couldn't refuse. Metallica were then off to the East Coast. Issues between Dave and James were arising. John Zazula was the one who made the suggestion for them to get rid of Dave Mustaine. and so Dave was given a bus ticket to leave the Northeast. With that leads to, well, another one of thrash metal's iconic bands, Megadeth. At least Mustaine was caught holding a bottle, not holding his dick in his hand. Oh boy, I had to go there. With Dave being kicked out, they then reached out to Exodus's, well, Kirk Hammett. Kirk agrees, leaves the members of Exodus saddened, thus the classic lineup of Metallica is born. And in May of 1983, they are booked at Music America Recording Studio in Rochester, New York, to record what would become their debut full-length album, with Paul Curcio picked as the producer, with John Zazula serving as the executive. 10 tracks were recorded and then mixed. Originally, the album was going to be titled Metal Up Your Ass, but John and Marcia denied that title to be used, to which Cliff uttered the immortal words of, "Just fucking kill 'em all." And the album title is born. Kill 'em All was then released on July 25th. So, featuring 10 tracks, clocking in at the length of 51 minutes and 18 seconds. These 10 tracks are, well, of course, do I need to actually list off all the songs off of Kill 'Em All here? But since it is a routine for me to do on these review episodes, even, again, this is an Album of the Week episode, I have to do it for my album review videos. So, since this is technically sort of a review, not too much, I have to list off the tracks. So, here we go. Hit the Lights, The Four Horsemen, Motor Breath, Jump in the Fire, parentheses, Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth, Whiplash, Phantom Lord, No Remorse, Seek and Destroy, and then Metal Militia. So there you go, folks. There's your 10 tracks. While Metallica may not be considered as cool or as groundbreaking as they were back during this time period, Metallica may have released their 11th studio album this year, 72 Seasons. You can't deny, though, the impact that this band and album has left in the annals of music history in general. I may have been brought into this world when Metallica were music giants, because by the time I was little, Metallica had already had out the Black Album, Load, and Reload. Then the S&M Live album, I believe it was in 2002, or possibly 2003, when my brother had gotten a copy of the Black Album from Walmart. And by 2003, me being already in school, I knew how massively popular Metallica were, and yes, I was around when Saint Anger was a brand new album. But in the midst of 1983, Metallica were all the rage in the underground circles. I'll be honest with you, because of the fact that I was exposed to this band during their massive mainstream periods, getting to hear their early and much more metal records was quite the trip. But something about their early sound was honestly becoming more appealing to me than the material on the Black Album, let alone Saint Anger. So when I did hear Kill 'Em All for the first time, it took me by huge surprise. It felt more primal. It sounded raw. It was recordings of a band that was severely hungry for success. So hearing tracks like Hit the Lights, Whiplash, Phantom Lord, No Remorse, Seek and Destroy, and Metal Militia was like someone taking a switchblade knife and getting up from behind you to then proceed to slicing your neck. This was a band that were out to prove something, just taking their initial love for bands like Diamond Head, Raven, Venom, Tigers of Pantang, Sweet Savage, Parallax, Motorhead, and Budgie. They went and made something that would spread like a virus. The only other band that I feel that ever matched the same intensity as Metallica in the time frame, at least in this time frame of 1982 to 1983, was Exciter from Canada. I covered Heavy Metal Maniac on a Album of the Week episode, actually one of the early ones from this year, and made plenty of points that also makes Heavy Metal Maniac to be its equal in forming the foundation that is thrash metal. But Metallica got to see bigger success than compared to Exciter, which is why Heavy Metal Maniac doesn't have the same accolades that Kill 'Em All has. Still, there is no denying Kill 'Em All's impact. Of course, both Heavy Metal Maniac and Kill 'Em All would not be the only records that would help spearhead the creation of thrash metal in 1983. Let's just say a small band named Slayer would release their debut album on Metal Blade in December of 1983. More on that in the future, at least in the future of this year, 2023. I can go on more about the songs, but what has been said has already been said. I don't need to recite previous said shit. All I wanted was to do was focus on the importance of this album and what it meant and still means to not only metal, but music in general. This was groundbreaking for so many reasons, and it's truly something that this massively important album has reached 40 years old. So, there was no other way I could go about celebrating this album's 40th anniversary than to focus on its general importance in a way, what it did to my tastes. So, 40 years of Kill 'Em All. If you have any thoughts, whether they are positive or negative, you can leave them in the comment section below. But, if you have never listened to Kill 'Em All, then I don't know what to truly say to you. So, with that, this is Heavy Thrash Chat saying I'm out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.